Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
Hi, my name is Isaac Miner. I'm Miner Makes Mocks online, and this is my Kashyyyk build. It's based off of the Battlefront 2 game. You can see a lot of elements of that in the Wookiee structure here, this little sort of terrace, I guess you would call it. The big turbo tank over there is sinking in because it's been crashed. I guess the droids got it. You know, they'll do that, but they still got some Republic fighters out here. The gunship also crashed over there, but you know, we still got a big battle going on. It's something I can point out is the big pathway in the middle. You can see the regular tan part as opposed to the dark tan of the rest of the build. That's kind of where I guess these big turbo tanks have rolled through and sort of compressed the ground and taken out some of the leaves and stuff that used to be there.
That's a great sense of sort of like realism and just kind of shows the vehicles coming through. I think it's really neat. So when you started on this layout, you mentioned it's based on Battlefront 2. Where did you what section did you start with?
Okay, so I started with this section here. I had an idea of everything I wanted to include. The big turbo tank was definitely part of that. The downed gunship was part of that. But I just had to kind of work with the hardest part first because I knew I had a limited time to get this done before the convention. And so I did all this hard terrain work, all these panels here you see. I actually got the technique to sort of cover up some of these gaps here from Rich Boy J. He's over here, but he made a couple videos about using that for some of his builds, and I really appreciated that. So I was able to use those to close up some gaps and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it looks really smooth with that technique there. This the brown structure itself is really nice too, and you've got a lot of those kind of like tiles creating that effect up top.
That was actually something that, you know, I'd never seen somebody do before, and there's a good reason for that. It's because these big wedge bricks here at the bottom, those circular sort of bricks, those haven't existed till this year, really. And they're still pretty expensive, and I'd like to build more structures like that. So hopefully in the future when the prices come down on those, I can build some more and maybe even expand this. But yeah, I also spent a lot of time getting all of those tiles together and making sure all that fit together well. It was hard to do without it falling apart, believe it or not. Yeah.
I think my very favorite technique, though, is the way that you have these, the vehicles and the gunship kind of crashed in and kind of sinking into the mud there. That just adds so much realism to the build. So how did you sort of like conceptualize that and plan that out to make sure it would all work with the terrain?
Yeah, that was definitely something I saw in the game, and I knew I wanted to include that. That's why I started with sort of an elevated, like the terrain is all elevated a couple bricks tall so that I could sink that in later. And basically I just built filler in around the turbo tank. After I set it down there, I built filler in around it and then did my best with tiles and wedge plates to kind of match the side of it there, because it's a big sort of a big brick at the bottom you got to build around. And there are some gaps in there if you look real close, but I tried to close up most of them. So.
Yeah. No, it turned out really, really nice. And then what do we have happening in kind of this corner over here?
Okay, that was sort of just a last minute addition. One of the really fun characters to play in Battlefront is Grievous there. And I just have him sort of, I don't know if he's chatting with Captain Tarpal or what, but they might have a little showdown here in a minute, you know.
And do you know how many pieces and minifigures are on the build?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I guesstimated about 30,000 pieces. I know the turbo tank itself has about 8,000 in it. So it's a very intensive, part-intensive build there. And there's a lot in and under all of this as well. As far as minifigures go, I have no idea. I'd guess around 80 probably. I didn't want it to be too crowded with figures, but I also wanted to show just a really intense battle. So that was a delicate balance I had to sort of figure out too there.
One of the interesting terrain choices here is the way you've incorporated kind of bits of water in throughout the build. So how did you sort of do that to kind of break up some of the tans and dark tans?
Yeah. Okay, so Kashyyyk is a very swampy planet, especially in the game. You're always running through puddles and stuff, so that was another element that was important to me. And it was also a good way to fill in some terrain, because the dark tan tiles are pretty expensive. I didn't want to spend too much on those. So I just got some water, and that allows you to make a little smooth area as well, where you can pose minifigures in and stuff like that. And I just laid tiles down on top of the plates that are covering all of the filler down there, because I didn't want any of the random colors of the filler to come through, so I had to put down something on top first before I put the tiles on. And it also added some strength to it, having all those layers of things stacked, so that I can actually carry these sections with no support underneath. And they stay together decently in the car on the way up here. So
it's set up pretty easy then? What was that like when you got to BrickFair?
okay, there were some things that I had to sort of rebuild. The tank shifted when it was in the car, and so I had to sort of put the edges back on around it, and some of the shocks and things for the tank itself fell off. But most everything else stayed together pretty well. I had to take the building off. I had to take all of the vehicles and figures off to make sure they all stayed good. And you know, it's just a guessing game when you're driving as far as I did. You don't always know what's going to come apart, so you just give yourself time to get it all back together.
And for people who want to see more of your work, where are you most active online? What kind of content do you kind of post out there as you're working on these builds?
I have a pretty active Instagram I've been on for a while. Again, that's Miner Makes Mocks. And then I have just started a YouTube channel and detailed this entire building process on there at the same name under that. So, yeah.
Very cool. How do you find kind of creating content around your build? Changes the process at all, or what do you learn from doing that as you're sort of like really documenting that process closely?
At this point, it's kind of it's not too bad as far as time intensive, what I have to add to as far as time to build and everything. Basically, I just throw up a camera when I'm building and get me a little time lapse for everything, show what I'm doing, and then just a couple minutes to film what I'm, some audio for what I'm building and what I'm doing, and then the editing, I think, takes the most time. I'm sure you're familiar, but you know, it's not too bad, and it's just a fun way to kind of share with everybody else what you're doing and how you're accomplishing different things. So
yeah,
it's really fun.
One final detail that John was just showing here is this really cool lettering you did in the base, and I love that because it helps kind of add some extra detail to the black border there.
Yeah, that was a very boring section before, and I've made a couple other little builds that had that in it. I thought it added a lot, so I was really excited to add that to this as well. It identifies it, everybody knows what this is when they walk up to it because it has that, and I think that's a good thing to have in it.
What are your plans for the future in terms of other Star Wars builds or other plans for other work?
Oh, there's limitless ideas, you know. I don't know. I may add on to this and bring it out at Atlanta next year. There's no telling. I'll just have to see.
Yeah. Sounds good. Keep up the great work. This is amazing. So I appreciate you taking us through it.
Thank you.